Be sure to follow us on TikTok at MysticSage1 for daily anime content.
Shoto Todoroki is a hugely popular character. In official polls, he's never ranked lower than 3rd in Japan and never lower than 6th in the US. Considering he started out as a side character, he's grown into both a fan favorite and a core cast member. If you've watched my other MHA videos, you probably know what to expect. Today, we're exploring what it is that makes Todoroki such a likable character. There's a lot to cover, including some points that are manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution if you're not caught up. Alright, let's get started. Just to refresh your memory, Shoto Todoroki is the youngest son of current #1 hero, Endeavor, and his wife, Rei. His quirk is half cold, half hot, which produces ice from one half of his body and fire from the other half. At the beginning of the story, he only uses his ice half due to not wanting to use the power he inherited from his father. It took some mid-battle therapy from Midoriya for him to accept this fiery side, and since then, he's only become stronger and stronger. So the first main point that gives Todoroki his popularity is his growth as both a hero and a person. When we first meet him, he's withdrawn and very serious, focusing on his studies instead of trying to make friends. But after a time, he warms up to the other students. This absolutely reflects him going from only using ice to also using fire, which is such a fun way to develop a character. It's heartwarming for us to see him getting comfortable enough to make jokes with his friends. And he actually ends up having a dorky, deadpan sense of humor. He plays off Bakugo's aggression for great comedy. For example, Bakugo calls Kota a precocious brat, and completely straight-faced Todoroki replies, "Isn't he kind of like you?" Sometimes he just doesn't understand sarcasm or jokes. He responds to Mount Lady, saying her heart will beat out of her chest seeing him, by asking if she has a heart condition. It's made even funnier when we realize he's being serious and misunderstanding. It's not so much that we want to laugh at him, but that it's an endearing trait. Even before he became friends with the other students, he was never especially rude to them, just distant and always respected their abilities. So we know he's not a bad guy or an antagonistic rival like Bakugo, but just takes his studies and his power super seriously. Because of this, another thing that we like to see from Todoroki is when he loses his cool. It doesn't happen often, only when he gets too fired up during a fight. But when he does, he pushes himself past his limits and shows just how truly strong he is. It's impressive and also kind of scary. Speaking of power, Todoroki's quirk is especially interesting, because it gives us insight into a part of the My Hero Academia universe we wouldn't otherwise get to see, and that's quirk marriage. His father Endeavor married Rei, who has an ice emitter quirk, specifically to breed a more powerful version of his fire quirk into his children. Like arranged marriage, this is pretty controversial, but if done in a certain way, can be a good mutual partnership. In the case of the Todoroki family, it didn't work out well. I'll go into that in a moment. The other aspect of this is that Shoto was given specialized intense training by his father since he was a young child. Not only does this generate sympathy for Shoto, but it reflects the type of dynamic we see in the real world with pushy parents. In our world, those parents will have their kids study all night after school or play a sport all weekend without giving them a break. It's so that they can be the best at a certain skill. Sometimes that's just because they want to give their children the best chance at a better future. However, it's frequently due to the parents not being able to achieve their own dreams, like becoming an Olympian, so they push their kid to do it instead without regard for what the child actually wants. This is exactly what Endeavor does. He knows he can't surpass All Might on his own, so he creates a child with the exact quirk that he thinks will be able to beat him. And he trains Shoto to the point of throwing up, to push him to be as strong as he thinks he can be. It causes a lot of problems in the family, but the result of the training is that Shoto is incredibly skilled by the time of the events of the story. He even ranks 2nd place in Aizawa's quirk appreciation test, only being beaten by Momo, which says a lot about his talent. Despite the success of the training, the abuse that Shoto faced from his dad has made him reserved and socially awkward. It's only once he is in a safe place with friends who support him that he is able to start opening up. Going even further, Endeavor's actions affected his whole family, especially his wife. Rei eventually snapped from the abuse the family suffered at his hands, and threw hot water over Shoto, giving him his scar. She's now in a hospital, but her relationship with her kids has ended up positive, aside from Toya, assumed to be dead. On the other side of this though, Shoto blames himself for his mother's poor mental health, because Endeavor was supposedly only abusive to try and make Shoto stronger. I think this is relatable for many people, because growing up with abusive or complex family problems can leave children with misplaced guilt. It's good that MHA doesn't shy away from these complicated relationships, especially dealing with parents who have mental illness, and siblings who deal with family problems in different ways. We feel for Shoto being in such a difficult position, and we root for him to move past his trauma and be happy with his friends. Especially seeing him caring about his father still. When Endeavor fights the high-end Nomu with Hawks, he shows relief when Endeavor turns out to be okay. It shows Shoto as a compassionate person, in spite of everything his father has done, which adds another layer of complexity that's realistic for kids of abusive parents. The other relationship that we find interesting for Shoto is with his brother, Toya. This is where the manga spoilers come in especially. Shoto and Toya have something of a Cain and Abel dynamic. Toya, aka Dabi, has a vendetta against his family, especially his father and Shoto. I won't go too much into his motivations, but the relationship is very complicated for us as viewers. We love Shoto, but can also sympathize with Dabi. He got the short straw in the whole quirk marriage thing, getting a stronger fire quirk, but a weakness to fire from his mother, whereas Shoto got the additional ice to counteract the damage of the fire. So while Dabi is the worst of the failed experiments, Shoto is the golden child. Despite this, they both have the same kind of resentment towards Endeavor, particularly before he tries to make amends. Therefore, they both reflect and contrast each other. Rather than adding sympathy for Shoto, it creates even more depth, making him all the more intriguing, because we want to see more about this relationship. The pinnacle of this, from what we've seen so far, is Shoto declaring that he must be the one to stop Dabi in a recent part of the manga. This twisted sibling rivalry has Todoroki fans on the edge of our seats. Being the golden child of a famous parent, it would be easy for Shoto to become a flashy, popular hero. He's been called good-looking many times, especially in the manga, with Mina even saying that he's the pretty boy of the class. But he remains humble and dedicated to his path. His hero name is just Shoto, and his costume is a very plain fireproof outfit with a utility belt. He apologizes a lot even when he doesn't need to, and although this is sometimes played for comedy, it gives him a gentle and caring aura. When 1A is deciding on a class president, he puts his trust in Momo because he respects her strengths as a leader, even though he's one of the most powerful in the class himself. It makes him even more likable. Characters from noble backgrounds with dark backstories are frequently arrogant, resentful, or rude towards the main character, Noel. But Shoto is a bit different, so we can't help liking him. He's just a sweet boy who wants to do good in spite of his rough childhood. The final thing I want to discuss is how Todoroki and Midoriya oppose each other in this story. Not when they fight each other, but in terms of their design differences. The amazing contrast of Todoroki being bred to have a perfect quirk, and Deku being born quirkless. Strong quirks being revered by society, but Todoroki being abused for it, versus quirkless being looked down on, but Deku having a loving home. Todoroki has a chosen one type ability with a powerful family. But quirkless Midoriya is actually chosen to receive arguably the only perfect quirk, One for All. Even to the point that Todoroki is good looking and quiet, whereas Deku is rounder and younger looking, as well as being more excitable. Having a non-antagonist character be such a perfect opposite to the protagonist is refreshing, and gives more variety to the main cast in general. To sum up, we can't help but love Todoroki because he's a good person, who supports and respects his friends. He has a sympathetic and realistic backstory with good depth without being cheesy or overdone. His character development from the start of the series to now is one of the most noticeable out of everyone, and as an audience, we feel proud and protective of him. Let me know your thoughts about Todoroki in the comments. Did I forget anything about him that makes him one of your favorites? Let me know down below. Before the video closes out, I just want to thank you so much for your support during this month of July. I'm uploading every day, and with all the different anime I'm covering, I know there's a little bit for everyone. Also, if you want a little more Mystic Sage, head on over to TikTok and check us out over there for more fun, bite-sized anime videos. I've also got an Amazon store where I sell tons of Pokemon and anime merch too, so check it out. For real this time though, thanks again for watching. I'm Mystic Sage, and I'll see you tomorrow with more amazing anime content.